Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you a first look and a physical overview of a lens that I've actually now been using for a couple of weeks, but I have been so busy in terms of both my review schedule along with my personal schedule that I haven't had time to actually report back to you about it. And that is the highly anticipated new Sigma 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8, and this is from their art series. It has their optical stabilizer, and so it's highly anticipated because there are few lenses more useful than a 24 to 70 f2.8 lens. And so in this episode we're going to be looking at the physical build and design of this lens, and I am going to also give you a chance to start to look at some of the early photos that I'm taking with the lens. Let's jump in. Let's take a closer look at the build and design here. So the 24 to 70 f2.8 DG OS HSM art lens comes in a nice padded case like other Sigma lenses for this. We'll see that it is made in Japan. 017 is the year, the date of its release. So very first thing I want to point out here nicely is that we do have some weather sealing on this lens. Very important for a lens that is going to be used in so many different ways. I can see some good coatings here on the rear element here. So if we just take a quick look here, we can see that when it's fully zoomed out, it does open up a little bit of space where you can see into the innards. That's unfortunately not all that uncommon, but anyway, it does, once it's mounted on the camera, of course the potential of getting things inside the lens are diminished. But you might want to be careful that if you don't have the rear cap on, that you have it in its retracted position where it is the tightest seal there towards the back. The lens feels hefty in hand, which of course it is quite hefty. It is 2.24 pounds or 1,020 grams. And so it is a heavy lens and considerably heavier than either the existing Tamron 24 to 70 VC or the Canon 24 to 70 f2.8 L Mark II. So it will be the heaviest in the series. Coming up to the front, you've got an 82 millimeter front filter thread, which is similar to both the Tamron and the Canon lens. On the side, you have got two different options here. You've got kind of the standards for Sigma lenses. You have autofocus. You have a middle switch that is for manual override. So if you're a person that fears kind of messing up focus by accidentally hitting the focus ring, then just put it into full autofocus mode. Manual override is for those that want to be able to have full-time manual override at any point, which Sigma's HSM focus motor does allow for. Then of course your final position is actual manual focus. And so if you want to actually just do manual focus, optical stabilizer, just on and off for that. But through the Sigma USB dock, you can program some different behaviors for the OS into that. So you have two focus rings here that are quite close to, or two rings, I should say, that are quite close together. And the overall length of the lens is fairly compact. It's not a particularly long lens. It's 4.24 inches or 107.6 millimeters, but it is quite squat. Around it is almost 3.5 inches around, or 88 millimeters there. And so as a result, there's not a whole lot of barrel room here to play with. There's a lot that's packed into this. And so the actual focus ring is fairly narrow, as you can see. The zoom ring is a little bit wider, and it is damped nice and smooth. However, it is on, at least in this unbroken in copy, the damping is a little bit more on the heavier side. And so anyway, it's not a problem to zoom, but it does require a little bit more effort than what you might anticipate. One thing that I've not necessarily seen before that's kind of nice is that there is a line inside here helping you to visually see where you're actually zoomed to. However, you're only going to start to see that at right before 35 millimeters. But anyway, that's just another nice little visual indicator there. Sigma's lens hood here is it's pedal shaped. It is reasonably compact here. It's made of plastics and ribbed on the inside to help to avoid stray reflections. There is a little bit of a rubberized surface here in the transition, which I do like about Sigma's, and then also another nice place to grip surface there. As you can hear, that when it locks into place, it does so quite firmly, and so it takes effort to release that, but the good news of that is that you're not going to have it, you know, kind of just slipping easily and thus interfering with the actual framing on the lens. And there's an art badge here for the art series. So I'll give you a quick look at the innards of this. It has a minimum focus distance of 1.21 feet or 37 centimeters, which gives you a reproduction ratio of 1 to 4.8. There are 9 rounded aperture blades, and then the optical formula is pretty complex. It's 19 elements in 14 groups, and of course a lot of engineering work into a lens like this, because it's not just about zoom range, of course. This feels very, very nicely made. It is the mix, you know, the Sigma mix of metals and then also their thermal composite or their high-end engineered plastics that to me seem very durable, and of course the typical new kind of design that Sigma has and its kind of global vision, which I think is a really excellent, very clean looking lens. So there's a little bit closer look at the lens itself. As you can see, this is actually a really beautifully constructed lens, and of course it joins the Tamron 24-70 millimeter f2.8 and the Nikon 24-70 as being the ones that have an image stabilizer as an option in them. Canon, of course, doesn't yet have a first-party lens in this focal length that has an image stabilizer, and so that gives, of course, Sigma a leg up. Now, I used the Tamron, at least the first generation 24-70, for a number of years, and I got a lot of great photos with it. Optically, it's great. I can tell you, however, that this new Sigma lens is definitely an improvement in terms of the build and functionality. It feels much more pro-grade in terms of its construction. Of course, the downside of that, it's also a fair bit heavier, but it just really, everything moves very, very well. It seems like all the tolerances are really excellent on this lens, and I'm very impressed with it. In fact, when the new 60 Mark II arrived, which I've got it mounted on right now, and it came with the new 24-105 f4L Mark II from Canon, I was actually kind of disappointed by the feel of the lens. I'm not talking about optics yet, I'm just talking about the feel of the lens. It felt quite plasticky by comparison, you know, cheaper than what this lens does. And so if you're interested in a lens that has a really great build, this is a really, and the damping on the focus ring is really, really smooth. I'm very impressed by it in that sense in the early going. Now I know, of course, that you're all interested in the optical performance, and I'll be bringing you episodes where we look at the optical performance. We'll take a look also at the autofocus performance and the image stabilization. While I haven't actually tested those in an intentional way, I can tell you that in basic operation, autofocus is very quick and quiet, and the image stabilizer seems to do a good job. And so overall, I'm happy with what I'm seeing in the early going from this lens, and I'll report back to you after I have kind of field tested it in a more concentrated fashion. In the meantime, however, if you want to look in the description down below here, you can find a link to my image gallery where I've got photos of this lens along with photos that I've been taking with it, and I've taken it with a 5D Mark IV. I'll try it out here on this 60 Mark II. And then just because I know some of you like to use Sigma lenses on Sony bodies, while I don't have a full frame Sony body, I do have the A6500. So I'll use the Sigma MC11 adapter, and I'll throw it on there and see what we get shooting with it like that. And you can find all of that in the image gallery as I'm adding to it on an ongoing basis. Of course, if you haven't already, you can follow me on social media. You can become one of my patrons and help to keep these reviews coming at my Patreon account. And of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.